to deploy. Yeah. So
So
it's
I know it. And I do, Courtney, I do want to come back because I know, in particular, the EGFR space, who the doctors are beyond Passiani that we work so closely with. But the healthcare delivery system is still such a challenge. I think it is still very dysfunctional. It obviously doesn't
well, I think
serve.
it's very uneven,
Yes,
is what I'm
but
saying.
so, you know,
I
it,
happen to catch after all my other PCPs retired. I happened to catch a young one who was
a
doing
good one.
something interesting and
Yeah.
doing this kind of follow-up work. Uh, it's great.
Well, that should be the model of care, and it
It
should
should be
be,
the model of care. Absolutely. Absolutely.
having that holistic continuum of care approach,
Yeah,
to
right.
managing each person's unique needs. And I wish that was the case across the board. We do our best to help align that where we can. And that's why our work with our provider network that
Hmm.
we've been working with in communities across the country around the management of screening and care for our community is so critical so that there can
Hmm.
be kind of standardization, harmonization, continuity, and a alignment in this way that if
Hmm.
we could do our bit to make it to make the experience what you're experiencing,
Yeah,
that just is wonderful to hear. And I'm
yeah,
thrilled that you have that opportunity.
yeah. I mean, I'm lucky to have it, but it's a good beacon out there to aim for.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah.
And
So
Courtney,
what's supposed to happen this afternoon on this call?
Shall we jump in and get started? I know we're small, but we'll be
absolutely.
mighty. And I think
Yeah.
there'll be a couple more people joining us. So we have Wells here with us, and I believe we have Tanya Tiedrich, the TT over there. And I know she had another meeting going on. So I'm Lisa Tinsley, and we have our President CEO, Lori Ambrose. We have our Courtney Granfield, who is our Scientific Chief Officer here. And we have Emily Iris, who is our Chief Development Officer. So our intent today is just like we started, to be casual and to be able to have a conversation about what's happening in this field of lung cancer today. And I'm starting to record, as you heard that recording announcement come on, so that I can share it with those who haven't been able to make it today. So just jumping right in, I'll just go right back to Lori and let her take the stand. But thank you for joining us today, and thank you for your support.
Well, Lisa, and this is great that you would do this and organize what is always just such a heartfelt opportunity to kind of pause doing our day in, day out work and then have the opportunity just to connect with our community and share updates, but most importantly, hear what's on your mind and what you're experiencing or what we can do to be helpful to you. But as Wells, as we started out, you bet we're going and growing. And I think we've got a lot of work to do, but I feel like the wind is finally at our back and moving us in an accelerated way forward in all aspects of this disease, the early detection space, the treatment space, and even the survivorship space. We're
Mhm.
working across the board in that continuum of care, as you just mentioned, to drive earlier understandings and interventions and diagnoses and helping accelerate new treatment options for more mutations that are being discovered, but also helping to really advance research into the unknown. Why someone with no known risk factors would get lung cancer, and
Mm.
particularly younger women who've never
Yeah.
smoked. What is that inherited connection? What is the genetic, the genomic, the behavioral, the environmental connections well beyond what tobacco is understood to be, the underbelly.
Right.
So this is actually the opportunity to report out on some of these top line developments, but also hear from you and answer questions that you might have that could be helpful to you. And with Courtney on the line, I think some of the most exciting developments have to do with the research agenda, not just for us, but what we're seeing evolve, and particularly with data and AI and all these new bells and whistles. But it's also, if I can just put a pin on this in a little separate note, something that we have long desired, and that is to actually have star power that is aligned with us to elevate national attention. And we have had the benefit now of celebrities who have felt that it was important to join us, motivated when they learned about us, and energized with their experience of being with us. And we've had PSA work with actor, director, producer Tony Goldwyn that excitingly has gone beyond what we even imagined. It's bounced around the globe. It's a PSA letting people know that you don't have to be alone, that go-to is your go-to if you need help and support. And he was so moved by this experience that he said, I'm in for another one, which we didn't anticipate, another public service announcement. And this one targeted at screening, which we know we need to make more people aware that they can be beneficial or benefits of early detection if they currently fit a risk profile. But his mother passed from the disease and at a young age. And so his personal experience, his wish that there was a go-to then that he could have turned to, but also understanding the importance of screening and its life-saving benefit. So we just filmed with him again this past Friday. So you all have just kind of a sneak, I wish I could say preview because it's all being put together and packaged, but it's Tony Goldwyn again, who is sharing a message, how early detection can save lives, and to be able to connect with us to learn more about how to access and whether one applies. So that's pretty cool. But let me just stop there for a minute and I can turn to Courtney and she can talk a little bit about this research engine that is driving this train forward of late and the excitement around that. And I know there's background noise and I don't know if folks have their maybe muted because you can hear other conversations occurring.
I'm going to try to mute Tanya here.
Well, I'm the new kid on the block, Wells and Tanya. It's really nice to see you and to meet some of the people that have been steadfast supporters, and also Wells, just to hear a little bit of your story. I think you said you're 91, which I find totally mind-blowing because I never, ever, I wouldn't have got within 10% of that. So you look amazing. My mom lived for 16 years with stage 4 ovarian cancer, not long, but I thought that was pretty remarkable. So 26, that's something. When I was in graduate school, that was when Aressa first came out, and we were debating in the lab all the time, you know, should we give it to everybody? Should you have to have an EGFR mutation? And, you know, at that time, people without mutations were seeing benefit from it too. So anyway, you know the history of that drug, and it's just remarkable to meet you. So thank you so much. And as Lori said, you know, some of our research, a lot of it, and where we've made some good headway since I joined the organization in January, is really on trying to understand the origins of lung cancer. So our Origins initiative, we have 2 ongoing clinical studies. One is focused on young lung cancer. It's an epidemiologic study. And we're really collecting, in addition to blood, a lot of data around self-reported data on exposures, on lifestyle habits in people who are diagnosed with lung cancer before the age of 50. And we're looking specifically at mutation groups. So that study right now has about 65 people enrolled who have lung cancer driven by EGFR mutations, another 50 enrolled in the ALK positive group, and then we have a handful of those with ROS1 mutations. Surprisingly, we only have about 5 with KRAS mutations, which I find really, really odd. So that's an area we want to work on, getting more folks with those mutations. But that study's been ongoing for 2 or 3 years, and hopefully wrapping up and giving us some readouts in the coming months or year or so. We'll see how much longer we go. So that's one study, and we're looking forward to getting some of the data out of it. And then the second study is the INHERIT study. Have you heard anything about the INHERIT study?
I did years ago.
Okay, so you probably are familiar with really the original research that GO2 and Alchemy took part in, which was really responsible for identifying this T790M germline mutation, which is pretty remarkable for a patient advocacy organization. And I guess we found the right partners. And so we've actually continued that work with Dana-Farber, and Lori mentioned Passijani, who is the PI. The lead investigator on that study is a physician named Jacqueline Lopiccolo. And we kicked that study off in April. And in the first 6 months now, we already have over 400 people who have shown interest, and I'm just looking for the actual data here that we have, but we have almost, let's see, we have almost 150 people enrolled in the study. So as of today, 140 people consented. And then we're just starting to get preliminary germline data from these participants. So they all give us a blood sample, and then we perform whole genome sequencing as well as some more targeted sequencing on a panel to confirm their status. The participants in this study either have germline EGFR mutations, germline mutations in other genes that are associated with cancer and sometimes lung cancer, or a really strong family history. So multiple family members who have been diagnosed with lung cancer. And we confirm their genetic status. And so of those 140 who have been enrolled, 43 of them have confirmed EGFR germline mutations. But then we've also confirmed actually in the cohort that's family history. So these are people who don't necessarily have a germline mutation, but maybe they don't know because we don't routinely do germline testing. We've actually already identified in those people CHEK2 mutations. So CHEK2 is a gene that's involved in DNA damage and repair response. We've identified 2 people, actually family members, who carry this mutation, and they were unaware of it. So, and that data's not been shared with anybody yet. Well, so you're like the first person to know outside of GO2 that we're identifying these mutations.
Well, are you only using blood analysis, or are you using tissue as well?
We are only using blood. We're not looking at tumor tissue, at least right now.
Whose testing do you use? I'm curious.
Oh, okay, boy, this is now a loaded conversation. So we're using Invitae to do the testing.
Who?
Invitae,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
And
Do you have a
and it's
suggestion or somebody we should say?
no. I just wondered where you were these days. I haven't kept up, but that's and so it's a complete panel.
So the Invitae does whole genome sequencing. So it's not even a panel. They're sequencing the entire genome And then we're looking for specific variants as well as rare variants that we don't know, and we're looking to identify new variants. So, but then you can also opt in to have a panel test done. So Dana-Farber has developed their own multi-gene panel test. It has about 100 targets on it. And these include things like EGFR T790M, check mutations, BRCA1 and 2 mutations, HER2 mutations. But then they also carry some variants of what we call unknown significance. So they're rare variants, but we don't really know if they're playing a causative role. But they've really carefully curated this panel. And so participants can also opt in to have this multi-gene panel test performed.
That's great. That's much more complete than we were years ago. I must say it's good.
It's come a long way. That's for sure. That's for sure. So we're really excited about it. We, to have such a robust response in 6 months, our goal was really in the first, 2 years to have 400 people enrolled. So I think we're going to get there. We should, hopefully we can cross the 200 mark sometime early next year, which will be, inside of a year. And continue to bring people onto the study. And the idea is to look at these genes in their totality. So yes, we might identify something like T790M, which in of itself seems, to predispose for the development of lung cancer. But we're also really interested in looking across the whole genome and saying, if we combine, lots of different genes, can we create, a risk score, polygenic risk? You're nodding like you know what I'm talking about. So I'm not sure how much of this to dive into. But we're
Well, I'm
excited.
just interested in seeing where you are now, and you seem to be right there
Yeah.
on the edge. Yeah.
The other thing that's cool about Inherit is you don't have to have a lung cancer diagnosis to participate. So we're really interested in looking at those who are at risk. And that means that we have to bring people onto the study who, have multiple family members who've been affected or who have a known germline mutation. And we're excited about that because really that's very challenging to do. And we're hoping that we can add another phase to the study where we actually screen people who are at high risk every, 6 months to a year. And we would do that for about 5 years. And, who knows, see if we actually are able to predict, risk or detect precancerous lesions or cancer in that population. But right now that's not incorporated into the study. We're hoping to get there. And then the other thing we're doing, are you familiar with our registry? Lung cancer registry?
I think so. It started maybe 10 years ago or something.
Yeah, okay. You're probably a participant in the
Probably.
registry.
Yeah.
Probably. You're like, leave me alone. Who's sending me all these
No,
emails?
no.
Okay, well, so the registry is really amazing because it is the largest lung cancer registry containing, patient reported or person reported data. And, you seem to be up on the science. So in science speak now, we're calling all of that, real world data, real world evidence. So data that's not collected through, a clinical trial that's very well controlled, but we know that data still has a lot of value. And we're utilizing the existing registry, that foundation, to really build a larger data set. And so we're hoping at some point to launch the Origins Lung Cancer Data Hub, which will bring in other types of data, including this genetic and genomic data we were talking about, but also clinical data and scan data, diagnostic imaging data, and be able, to query across these different data modalities and hopefully learn more about, why some people are getting lung cancer. So that's very exciting. That's where I've been, spending a lot of my time since I joined GoTo, really thinking about how we could do that. And the registry is moving over to a new platform. You probably remembered when it moved 3 years ago. You'll be very happy to know you don't have to reconsent this time. We have a really good partner who can help us to move everything over to the new platform and keep it safe and secure. And, it's still being used for the same purpose. So we're excited about that. Those are sort of the main initiatives that we're working on the origin side with research. What other questions do you have about that? Anything? Or anything you'd like to see?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I didn't expect you'd be asking me for my views at this
What
point.
do you know who did the genetic testing? I assume you've had genetic testing done. Do you know who did it when you were participating in this kind of stuff?
You're not going to believe this, but this was before the human genome was done. It was back in 1998. And I had heard about genomics, and one of my sons, Duncan Whitney, has worked in genomics in a number of startups. And I had a clue that mutations were being paid attention to. And I had some lab rat in David Javelin's lab at UCSF go find my resected tumor, take a slice off it, and do whatever he could. And what he did was a FISH test and determined that there was a EGFR mutation. He didn't know which one. And that got me onto John Lynch's article from Boston. I forget in which journal, that it was a druggable mutation. And somehow through that, I found Aresta. I mean, it was unbelievable timing that happened just when I needed it. So I didn't go through a panel, and I've never had my tumor really analyzed completely because Javelin's lab lost my sample. So that's that's my story. But it was enough to get me onto Aresta, thank God.
You know what's so remarkable about that? It's just, I think you have to advocate for yourself. And the fact that you did that, that's
Well,
that's why you got on that drug.
well, absolutely. And this was before Bonnie was involved. Bonnie was later. And David Javelin, I think you all know David, don't you?
By
A
name, I do.
completely crazy oncologist who has goats and cheese and restaurants, and but he's a fabulous guy, and he's crazy. And I had him promise that he would resect my tumor if I could reduce its bulk by 50%, which I did with chemo. And he did resect it. He shouldn't have a stage 4 patient. And that's how we were able to get a sample and find the way to Aresa. It's a just-in-time story all the way.
Well, that highlights a second thing that I learned from my mom, because it was the advocacy, but it was also surgery. And she had a crazy rogue surgeon too. And she moved from Boston to California to Topanga, where this guy, repeatedly resected tumors for another 8 years after the folks up in Boston said, we're done. And, it's amazing. You have to come at cancer with every tool in the toolbox.
Yeah, and that's why I asked whether you're doing blood analysis or tissue analysis, because if you can really do it with blood, and I know there's been a lot of controversy about how comprehensive that is, and Can you really
So
get
in this case, because we're interested in inheritance and we want to know what's in the germline, that's why we're using blood.
That's
But
true. That's true.
from your
Yeah, right.
perspective, from a treatment perspective, you need that tumor tissue because that's going to tell you, you know, what you should go at the cancer with. But our study is a little different because we're trying to look at how does this whole thing start, you know, and why are some people at higher risk than others?
Yeah, I get it. Good.
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
Courtney, I put a little question in there in the chat box from Tanya. I know she stepped out, but we're recording. Do you have any new information that's being gleaned about non-smokers and their diagnosis that they're receiving? Have we learned anything yet?
Yeah, well, so I think I shared some of the you know, some of the data already that is coming out of the study just around the participants. And you know, we've been able to enroll pretty quickly onto the study. So I think we're really hopeful that we're going to learn more about at least the underlying genetics. That Inherit study is taking smokers and non-smokers, so we should be able to tease apart whether there are differences there. The other thing is that from the EPI study, we have not done a deep dive on that data yet, but that is specifically a study looking at you know, younger people and goes beyond the genetics to look at lifestyle factors and environmental factors, social factors that could be influencing risks. So hopefully we will glean more out of those studies in the next couple of years.
And what I would add to that too, just for purposes of this, that is the importance of the Women in Lung Cancer Research and Preventive Service Act that we have been driving for and seeking passage of for years. It is to require a much deeper dive and investment in women's research as it relates to lung cancer, because we know it is a different disease in women and men, like so many other illnesses. And we have lacked sufficient investment to look at all of these aspects. And most importantly, knowing that even treatments themselves differ between the sexes. So we have to have more women participating in studies like this so that we can have the benefit of understanding their unique differences that then will drive more personalized approaches to meet the needs of women. So this is something so important to us, and that's what the legislation that dovetails all of this represents. It's a focus on getting at, you know, why 2/3 of non-smoking diagnoses are women, and particularly those at younger ages. So just to put a point on that as well. No. I know.
Hi, Solna. Thanks for joining us.
I had another meeting, so okay, thank you. But I'll see everybody when they come to the gala, right? Won't you be there, Laurie? Are you coming to California?
You were going to see me on screen
Oh,
because I have a broken leg. And I am devastated that I have been sidelined for several weeks now and several more weeks to come.
oh, I'm
So-
sorry. Oh,
I know. I'm pissed.
What did you do? Oh, sorry. Did you tell everybody before I came?
No, I didn't really mention it, but it was a horse related accident. I have a horse, so it involved riding and just a freak accident, and it's nothing. Fortunately, I didn't need to have surgery, but it's just a question of bones healing. And I had to be reminded that I'm older, so it's going to take longer, which was just putting more, shall we say, gas on the fire. But anyway, that's the situation. So it's very disappointing for me, but they're in spirit for sure. I'll be sitting here having a glass of champagne at the same time you all will be.
I was going to tell you to dress warm. It's going to be cold, so it's
Yeah,
cold
yeah.
out, so.
I know.
I'm
And
sitting
not
at your
just
table,
dance
Solda.
to your legs, or you dance so much. I watched you dancing, so oh dear, it's because you.
I know. That's the worst part because we always have so much fun. Anyway,
We'll toast you. We'll toast you, Lori, while we're there.
well, thank you. But we've had such a great conversation with Wells, and I don't know if all of you know Wells or not, or if we could be introducing the two of you.
No, I don't know Wells. I never met Wells.
Well, you're going to become fast friends. And Wells has been a part of our family as well for many, many, many years. And in fact, an extraordinary statistic.
Well,
as-
I was there at the beginning.
Oh,
It was Bonnie Dario and David Javelins and
yeah.
myself. And we decided that we weren't being covered by UCSF. We needed our own gala and our own foundation and our own work. And that's where this started. And then we met Lori many years afterwards, and
yeah.
it just expanded. But
Wow.
yeah, I've been involved for almost 20 years now with the foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
A survivor for as you just said, 24 years,
26 years, 26
26
years.
years.
Wow.
Yeah.
EGFR, yep, fourth
Yeah.
stage, 26-year survivor. So there you go.
Wow. Very nice. Yeah. Gee. And
Well, what we were saying too is that this is just such a wonderful opportunity to connect with those who have been, with us for so long and have supported our work, and just having the opportunity, as Courtney was just doing, to share out some of the new initiatives that are underway and very exciting, and particularly in the research front. Courtney's our chief science officer and has been working, to stand up these studies that are looking at inherited risk, early lung cancer, and many other initiatives on that front, along with building out our registry further, and then even looking at how data, needs to be integrated appropriately, to help accelerate analyses and understandings.
Lori, one other thing I might mention,
Yeah.
an extension of the work on lung cancer. And I started in the last 10 years or so to give talks about aging to groups of senior around the Bay Area, because I'm also a trustee of the Buck Institute in Novato, California, which is the science of aging,
yeah.
Mhm.
and they're doing very well. And I've been a trustee there for 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
And I bring my cancer story, of course, into that as well.
Yeah.
And it is about paying attention to what's going on, to know what your numbers are, what your status is. I mean, I just had this talk with my PCP earlier today about my status right now. And when you get people involved in organizations like yours, you get them really interested for a change, and they pay better attention to what's happening on all fronts, not just lung cancer.
Well, and that's such a wonderful point, because tagged with that is the fact that we do have extended life. We do have
Exactly.
survivorship. We have this whole universe now that was only a dream thought of, where we're now seeing people living longer and with a quality of life. And so the issue of survivorship, to your point, Wells, is real and requires its own approach and support and investment, because we're achieving it. And,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
going to even grow more if we're continuing the work to advance earlier understandings, as well as managing treatment options. So it's a really, really important point, but also one that we've looked at across that continuum, that we connect from kind of beginning to the end, and survivorship playing an even more exciting and pivotal role in the way we approach supportive work and research and care. And even some of the legislation, again, tying it back in, supporting the medical community that are working in this field that should be reimbursed at higher costs and in different ways, you know, to do this, the palliative care work that we've done legislatively that would support those who are working in these fields to manage quality of life. It doesn't mean end of life, it means quality of life. So again, it's how all of this ties in. So as we learn from our community where there may be gaps, what they're experiencing, that's when we activate and adapt programs that will address those needs or those understandings or those awarenesses that we hope to be able to touch and support in some way. But it's a constant feedback loop is the point. So it's a great point to make.
Right, and my point being only that the comorbidities with aging, they can be tied into the lung cancer journey. Lung cancer is only a part of it, and the same practices, the same attention that we're building between patients and caregivers is very, very important.
You're here. You know, on kind of a parallel way, and so I want you to certainly chime in here too with your thoughts of interest, but in a parallel way, what we're being able to see similarly how you can connect research across diseases rather than disease being focused as an organ or a location. It's whether or not mutations are being found regardless of where, and then addressing them accordingly. So this cross-pollinating understanding of mutations that can benefit from drug therapies. But another parallel area is we know in the case of current early detection screening for lung cancer, that imaging work can also see early heart disease and other chest illnesses in that one picture. And so that's
Absolutely,
why we're
absolutely.
looking at a women's care coordination initiative that would combine early heart and lung cancer screening as one encounter, de-siloing this whole concept of one, you know, the siloed approach to preventive services. How can we combine this? And obviously with women being such activists, we thought, let's really wrap this around a women's care coordination initiative so we can benefit the men as well. But the concept of really thinking, how do you pull this through and implement this as a de-siloed, coordinated opportunity, because the evidence is already there. That image detects precalcification and suspicious nodules at the same time. And that's just the tip of the sword. There's much more that is, you know, in that encounter, but we figured let's start there, see if we can pilot an implementation study, but then obviously then you have to coordinate how it's reimbursed, that whole regulatory process. But boy, this would be a game changer and could be applied in other situations and opportunities. But that Women's Care Coordination Initiative is a big deal, and we are working hard to try to implement that. And as part of it, pass that women and lung cancer research and prevention.
So it's a special program within GO2?
These are initiatives. These are the kinds of initiatives that we are conceptualizing. So you heard from Courtney about some of the research programs. We have policy work, healthcare delivery work, you know, advocacy work, and even the providers themselves. Bonnie and I knew from the get-go, 80% of people get their care in communities. We focus on how we can stand up high quality community-based support. And we now have created a network that's referred to as our Centers of Excellence network, that our hospitals, community providers, now in 45 states and the District of Columbia, and pushing upwards of 1,000 of them who have received or will be receiving our excellence designation because they are following protocols that will provide to the community high quality screening and care. And that is what all of this, it's like a national pilot program that should have been done by the government. But we said, no, they're not going to do it. We need to. And that's been a major part of our work. And it's through that work that we're meeting the patient community, because these providers are alerting patients that come in that we're there to be their go-to. But then that network is also providing a research pipeline so that people can also be made aware of research that's underway that they may be able to qualify for. So that all of this connects. And again, how we learn and how we think through, in this authentic and trailblazing way has always been our mantra for people in communities across the country. Yeah.
Before we wrap up today, Emily, did you have anything that you wanted to share from our development side?
No, I'm good. I'm just here listening, getting updates myself, which is great. But Soul None Wells, thank you so much for being here and for all your support. But please feel free to ask any questions that you would like of Lori or Courtney of our dramatic impact.
They're finding, maybe you discussed this, but they're finding with people who have, they found my nodule because I have a history of heart disease in my family. And so they did a heart scan, and that's when they saw nodules on my lungs. So it went
Yes.
a lot the other way 10 years ago. So that's what happened with me. But so that was lucky. But now they're finding that, maybe you discussed this, that people who've had breast cancer and chemo are getting lung cancer, right? And higher. So what do you tell, like, friends of mine now are saying, well, should they have chemo because they've had breast cancer, and the doctors all want them to have 10 rounds of chemo, and they're saying, well, I don't want to get breast cancer. So what do you, things like that. So are you doing anything with breast cancer research after lung cancer? Or maybe the hospitals are doing that, I don't know. Do you know of any research?
Yeah, it is such a great question, and we're not invested in that research, but I certainly have heard, I've not read the actual statistics, so for me, anecdotally, that there is a concern about those who have had breast cancer and go through that treatment regime could be at high risk for lung cancer downstream because of those exposures.
Right.
Which does it happen to everyone? No, but I think it just means vigilance in managing, to Wells's point, how you manage your own individual, circumstances that keep you on top of, aware of. But you raise a really interesting point, but I feel that it isn't something that we've been able to invest in, and it is something worth, being more aware of. And Courtney, my goodness, weigh in here if you have any.
Well, I would just add that, so, it's not as simple as having breast cancer and lung cancer, but having multiple cancers is one of the elements of eligibility for the Inherit study. So we may have an opportunity. I don't know, and I can look. I don't know how many we have enrolled with multiple cancers. I think you're asking a slightly different question, but we may be able to come at that from another angle, depending on how many folks actually end up enrolled in Inherit that have lung cancer and another cancer. But that is we will enroll. That does sort of, I don't know how to put it the right way. But it is part of the inclusion criteria, is that if you have had lung cancer and another cancer, that we are potentially interested in having you in the Inherit study.
But isn't that relatively rare to have two different cancers still?
Yeah, I mean, it's relatively rare to have, you know, germline EGFR mutation and to have a family history of lung cancer too. So
Right. And so I think that's the kind of the rare instance.
Mm. This
What
isn't
I'm
rare. This
advocating
is
for is more
getting more common.
comprehensive um, medical
and isn't that also,
care across diseases and across
yeah,
more
yeah,
morbidities, and like
yeah,
cardiac stuff and lung cancer. That's a natural because you're dealing with the same area of the body and similar systems, right? So that's a fascinating combination.
Yeah, this one isn't, they aren't, they don't have lung cancer, but then they get it years later. Yeah, interesting. No, I think the hospitals or the doctors had better look into that, like MD Anderson or something, because that's where they deal with that kind of, they can sort of follow it better.
Right.
Yeah, that's really. I see you recording it, so could I listen to the first part? Can you send me the recording so at least I can hear what Courtney had to say earlier?
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Absolutely,
you.
we'll be sending it out.
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll
You know-
we'll let you hear it. No problem.
thanks.
Of course.
Yes.
But how interesting too, your experience is exactly what we want to be able to better manage. That incidental, certainly, that incidental finding is a whole nother area of our work, incidental pulmonary nodules or IPNs, where obviously that whole incidental situation that then discovers lung cancer and then how it's managed. But it's again, this opportunity of knowing right now, we do have evidence that shows you can detect early heart and lung cancer in one image. And we should be moving, and that's the problem. Scientific breakthroughs are not worth their weight unless they then get implemented, accessed affordably by the people who would benefit. So that's why the kind of the left hand is the science and the right hand is the implementation, which is what we constantly are looking at. And we just have this incredible opportunity right now to bring a coordinated approach to the two leading causes of death of women, heart disease and lung cancer.
Right, and I think what's good is that radiation or CT scans or all these equipment is getting so much better to be able to see all this. That's what's so wonderful. But also the doctors are now no longer touching you, so they're only learning how to use all the machines. So I think down the road, all these guys, the fellows and all the residents, are being trained only to use machines, and so everything goes to either an ultrasound or you need an ultrasound or an X-ray or CT. So they're getting there. I think they'll get there. What's the difference between an initiative? You mentioned initiative. What's an initiative compared to something else?
Well, an initiative or a program, kind of our focus of an endeavor. I mean, it's when I say an initiative, it's a program. It's one of our initiatives, one of our works underway, one of our programs. And we have, within our organization, 5 different departments, 6 different departments, if you kind of look at even our administration and operation. And within each of those departments, our research, our policy, our patient support services, our healthcare delivery, that's the provider network that we're working to expand and build out. In each of these program areas, our events, our activities. In each of these departments, we have programs or initiatives that are underway in their wheelhouse. So that's what I'm using those words interchangeably, but that's the intention. These are the actual activities, the programs, the initiatives that are underway, in each of these departments and cross-departmentally.
Okay.
If that makes sense. But
Yeah,
I think I may have mentioned our, care coordination initiative. That is a, when I say initiative, not to be so technical in that sense, we are working right now, we have a planning grant to really plan for how you would launch this initiative. So we haven't been able to launch the actual initiative, but we have a grant underway that would hopefully lead us to securing support to execute its implementation. And that's how I'm speaking of that. It's an initiative we hope to see evolve in 2025.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
There's another thing that you're supporting. When I was at the World Lung, World Lung in where was it, in San Diego?
Yeah.
It sounded like you're supporting 23andMe, right? Or do you know anything about 23andMe?
Well, we know a little bit. Courtney, why
it's-
don't you just share? But yes, we're collaborating with 23andMe on a lung cancer cohort initiative. And Courtney, you can explain that better than I can.
Yeah, so 23andMe launched a very specific research study around lung cancer. And part of that initiative was to bring together all of the various lung cancer and lung and mutation advocacy groups to raise awareness for the study. And so we have been aware of the study since the planning stages, and help them sort of figure out how they wanted to let people know about it and bring more people into the study. And so we stay up to date with them pretty regularly. And I think, we're fully supportive of them, carrying out this research study and trying to learn more about lung cancer. We also think it's really complementary to the work that we're doing. And so we're really interested in figuring out if we can grow, a deeper collaboration with them around the genetics and genomics. But, they're sort of just getting started. So that kind of remains to be seen whether we'll end up with a deeper collaboration with them. But to date, it's really, been around awareness.
They've got there was something on the radio about them. Are they even going to survive? I mean, I don't know what's happening there. Was it something?
Oh, yeah.
There's a scandal. What scandal is going on?
Well,
Yeah,
that's
I
really
mean, the company is going through some challenges, but I think they
Wow.
remain committed to this research study that they're doing. If the company goes under, then there are a lot of questions about what will happen with the study. Folks who do agree to participate, their data and the data use is restricted to whatever they consented their data to be used for. So, I think I'm personally hopeful that the company survives and is able
Yeah, I
to,
hope so.
continue doing what they're doing and continue the lung cancer research study.
It goes way back. It goes way back, that study,
Parkinson's.
23andMe.
Yeah. I remember when they started with Parkinson's, they came to all the Parkinson meetings. Yeah.
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 We're getting old. When we can talk about in the old days. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering. Yeah. Because, well, I hope they survive.
Do we have any other questions? Anything else we want to address before we wrap up?
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for being here, and I hope that others will enjoy your questions and your commentary, and we just appreciate you both.
That's here, and I'm just so sorry I won't be able to see you in person, but dance for me and have a glass of champagne for me, okay? And
That's the way you do it.
Well.
You know how to do it.
Lori does know how to do it up well.
And I was kidding Wells, I said, what's going on with your soul patch? And which is this, hadn't seen this in a while, but I know that that's a special a special kind of presentation of some of the younger folks. So I think you're regressing in age. That's what you're doing, Wells. You're going
I'm
backwards.
definitely regressing, yes, definitely.
And I say that not regressing, just reversing, shall we say.
And then
That's better. Benjamin Button.
can I give a shout out to my oncologist Alan Kramer,
Absolutely.
who has been with me this whole trip. And I still see him twice a year, and we congratulate each other that we're still around. So
And is he at Sutter or is he at UCSF or where is he?
he's somewhere between, he's in San Francisco. I think
Okay,
he's
okay,
a separate thing, but
okay.
he's been with me this whole time. But, but I've had this wonderful group from the beginning because of David Jablon's
Yeah.
and everyone he knows in the business, in the lung cancer business. And you know them all, I'm sure, but it's a great group of oncologists and workers in the trade. So
Yep. They're in
David
it. with
Jablon's
it.
retired. He's retiring. Did you hear that?
Mhm.
David Jablon's is retired.
Yeah.
he's retired.
His
Yeah.
goats. He's with his goats and his cheese.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Well, shall we just say then to be continued? And we're grateful for who you are and all you do for us and knowing that we are always there for you. So we'll just
Thank you very much, and you're
continue this,
wonderful, the work
okay?
you do, and I still refer people to you all the time, so.
And
Thank
the
you.
support groups on the second Tuesday is a really good idea. I go quite often, and they're very good. So that's
Good.
really nice. And
Good.
so the third Tuesdays as
Good.
well. We have really good speakers. So yeah, that's really nice. So
Yay.
thanks. And here's
Okay.
Krista.
Okay, thank you,
Okay,
everyone.
bye-bye.
Patty, we'll
Nice to
see
meet
ya.
you both.
Bye-bye.
care.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.